Hi everybody, this is going to be a quick tutorial about how Google Sheets works. If you're unfamiliar with Google Sheets entirely, I guess we'll start with a couple of really basic things. You can get to this by typing docs.google.com/spreadsheets into pretty much any browser, and that will allow you to open up and start a new Google Sheet. If you are in your Google Drive, you can go and hit the New button, and Google Sheet is an option there as well. And that's how you would basically get started. The other way you could do this is if you do have a Google form, you can go to the responses section and create a Google Sheet from there that would be pre-populated and continue to be populated with the data from the form. So we're going to use this as an example here of some data. It's just some random stuff that I put into a spreadsheet that may be something that is familiar for people. And we're going to run through some of the ways that we can kind of manipulate this to get it to be how we want it to be. Okay. There's a couple of things we can start out with that's really easy is freezing your rows and your columns. So you can obviously do that by coming up to your view option and hitting freeze, and you can choose these things. The quicker and easier way, however, is if you hover over here, you'll notice I have this little hand. If I click on that and drag it down, I've now frozen the top row. So as I scroll, the top row stays and everything else moves. I can do the same thing if I wanted column A. If I go over here, I can freeze those things. Having column A frozen is going to be a little bit irritating, so we're just going to get rid of that. So that's your basic stuff there. The next thing we can do is we can resize any of these rows. So right now they're all a uniform size. We can do that in a couple of different ways. If I want to get to here and I have my two-directional arrow, if I double click on that, it will automatically resize to the space I had that. If I want to do that to a large portion of this data, if I highlight all of these and I do the same thing, I can pick any one of those spots, but as long as I have this going on and double click, it resizes everything appropriately. Now, if that's not exactly what I'm hoping for, I can just then drag and move things around to get them to the right size. That also allows me, if I highlight, let's say I highlight column D, E, and F, they're a little bit tiny, I want them to be a little bit bigger, I can change all of them uniformly to the same size now by just highlighting them again like this, getting to that arrow, and I can do it in here as well and just drag over, and that makes them all uniform size and expands them the way I want. Right now, I already have my borders around my information here. So if I click borders, you can see what I have going on. I can change the border color. I can change the border style. So if it's really thick, let's say I wanted a thick box around all my data. I can click that right there. And notice now I have a thick box around that. And so you can change that quite a bit. When we're looking at some of this information here, we have this little test average thing. We don't really need anything else here. So let's say I didn't want to have multiple boxes. I can just come up here. I can merge those together, do that. If I want to indicate that nothing should be in there, I can come up to the colors and just say, all right, that's gray. I know that's not supposed to have any information in there. So that's some of your really, really basic standard formatting type stuff that we can put into this. There's no real craziness to it, but that's just some of the aesthetic stuff that you can do to your document. Kind of a next step up would be something like this maybe. So I've highlighted all my information. If I go to format and alternating colors, I can set this up with a little bit more of a, I don't say fancier appearance, but something that might help visually track some information. So now I have alternating colors going down each row, and it's a little bit easier to kind of see, who is who, especially if you have lots and lots of information. In terms of formatting like that, I can also do some conditional formatting. So if I highlight this right here, and I come back to format and conditional formatting, there's lots of things I can do. Right now, this is just numbers. So let's just say I want to see anybody that hits a value of above 85, we're going to give them a green. Hit done. So we have that right there. So I have that as well. Again, another thing that can help you visualize some of your data. Pretty straightforward and simple, nothing too crazy about how you do it. We have that there. As we move on, we can have some really pretty easy um, pieces we can add to this. So if I want to do some basic formulas in this, I have a couple columns, student total and student average. If I just hit equal sum, now it's kind of nice because Sheets has just started doing some intuitive stuff for us. So right now it's assuming that I want to get the sum of D2 through F2. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And then if I wanted to, this little dot pops up. I can drag that down, and it has now given me the total for all of these different students. So it's a nice little feature that's there as well. Over here, we're going to do the student average. So I'm just going to type in average, open my brackets up, highlight that information, hit enter. Now this is suggesting that I autofill. And if I want to do that, I can just hit the check mark. So now I have all these things autofilled, and apparently I have some conditional formatting going on with my data, as you can see. So this looks like a color scale that's going on. We have that as well. If we don't like all the decimal places, we can come up here and we can decrease the number of decimal places. We're just going to do it to 1. So we have that information. We notice that this is a color scale going from a darker green to as the highest number and a red at the lowest number. We can put in a handful of things here. This pass-fail section, we can do this in a number of ways. We can write a conditional formula if we wanted to. So we would write something like, if this number is, let's say, less than 65, then we're going to return F, and otherwise we are going to return AP. So we have that. We can drag that down, and we notice we have one failure and the others are passes. One of the other things we can do here is if we wanted to do this manually, I can highlight this information and come up to data and go to data validation. And I'm going to say, I want a list of items, and I'm just going to say pass, comma, fail. That's my list. That's all the stuff I want to have. And I hit save. Now I have a drop-down list where I can manually do this, and I can say, all right, that's a pass, that's a fail, that's a pass. So we have that as an option as well. You could do the same sort of thing with comments if you want to have comments in there. You know, right now Susie failed, but Susie has been working really hard this year. Okay. Now that looks a little bit weird because we have that bumped out. We have some options for text wrapping. If I go up to here, I can, right now it's on overflow, so it just continues. I can basically clip it or truncate it so it won't go outside the box, or I can wrap it so I see everything. It does give row 3 a little bit more space, but now that is all wrapped and I can see it kind of nice and neatly in here as well. We can do a couple of other things. If I highlight all of this, now this is a little bit more advanced, but I can come up here to extensions. And there's a handful of add-ons that we can do here. One of the ones I really like to manage stuff again visually is crop sheet. So I've selected that. I'm going to hit crop to selection. And now the rest of those cells that I don't need are gone. And all I have is this information right here. It's nice for bigger spreadsheets that have a lot of information. So as you're scrolling, you don't have to, maybe you're scrolling only to row 100. The other 900 rows that are going to be in there are no longer needed. You can just kind of get rid of them. So that is a handful of the information that we have in here. One of the other things we can do with this information, let's say I want to filter this, I can highlight all of that and click this little button up here. It says create filter. And now I have the ability to filter out this information based on kind of whatever the criteria is. So let's just say right here, I only want to see Miss Jones students. I'm going to hit clear, select Miss Jones, hit OK. Now only Miss Jones has her information displayed. So it's pretty, basic stuff right there. We have that going on. Okay, we're going to select all, bring those all back. I don't have student numbers in here. So if there's some data that either you want to keep hidden or isn't applicable for something, you can always highlight that column or row. And I'm going to right click here and I have a handful of options. One of them is that I can hide that column. And in essence, it just kind of disappears from your view. It's still there. You'll see we have these little, arrows going either way. If I click that, I can bring it right back. But that does allow me to hide that stuff so I don't have to see anything messing around with that. Now, if let's say I print this report, or I generated this report, but I want somebody else to do the commenting for me, but I didn't want them touching anything else. I can protect portions of this to allow edit access to other people, but not access to everything. So down here in my tab, these are technically separate sheets. I prefer them as tabs. I feel like it's a little bit easier, but we click on that and there's a little button here. So we click down here and then we click on protect sheet. And what I can do is I can protect my entire sheet except for these cells right here. So J2 to J8, I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to set permissions. And I'm going to say, if there's other editors here, we could do that. But since I'm the only one that has access right now, I'm going to hit only you, and I hit done. That means nobody else besides me can edit any of this information. However, whoever I give access to can edit the comments. So we have that as kind of some basic stuff in there as well. All right, we're going to hop over to our other tab and take a look at some of this stuff. There's a couple of things here that are going to be, fairly basic, but are kind of interesting features now that Google's added. One of them is actually called people chips. So I have just a handful of our email addresses in here from our ICT team. If I come over here to insert, I can come down to, oh, they've already changed the name from smart chips. Oh, look at that. Learn something new every day. But we can go ahead and click this, says convert to people chip. And what that does is it actually gives us the name as long as those people are in our system. And it's interesting because it does actually ask if I want to share with those people once we convert that. So it kind of is a little bit intuitive. But since everybody here has the rhnet.org domain, it recognizes them and can turn their emails into these people chips. So it gives what their display name basically would be. So I'm going to go back because I don't actually want that right now. So that's just one of those things we can have. In terms of inserting stuff, there's a handful of things that we can add here. You can add images. This is actually new within the past probably 3 or 4 years, but you can put an image right in a cell. So if you want to see something displayed in there, you can toss that right in. Technically, you can put drawings, which means you can create your own stuff to dump right in there. You can add checkboxes, which is a nice little feature. So we can put that in here and I can check on or off. Checkboxes are really nice because they do technically have values. So you'll notice right here, it says false. If I check it, it goes to true. That means with the checkboxes, I can incorporate that information into different formulas. If I'm writing a formula and I want to calculate something, I can say, like if, count these things only if the boxes are checked, and that will allow, some calculations about things being done or not done, that sort of stuff. We can hyperlink pretty much any of these cells, and a new feature as of probably the last year or so is you can actually add multiple links to one cell. It used to be just one for one. Now, if you have, let's say, 3 lines of text inside a cell, you can hyperlink each one of those. So all we have to do is simply you either click on the cell or click on the information in the cell, and we come up here to link, and then you can kind of link it to whatever. Right now, this is giving me a couple options of just some of my things, but you can also add in, really any URL that you want to have that link there. So let's just, for the heck of it, we're going to click on a couple of these things. We'll notice I have this, and I can link that to something else. We'll just put that there. So now if I hover over this, I can see both of those things that are linked. I can copy those links over. I can edit those links. Right now, I'm just going to remove both of them. Oh, it's not letting me do it. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm going to remove those links. So that's another set of options we have. When we collect email addresses, one of the really nice things about having email addresses is now you can interact with people outside of the spreadsheet. So what we can do with this is let's just say I add a handful of information here, but with that person's email address. If I come up to extensions, I have 2 of them that will allow me to go through and share individualized messages or documents with people based off of what information is in that row with their email address. So I have 2 options. I can do Autocrat, which will create a document, and this will work off a template. So the template could be a Google Doc, it could be a Google Slides presentation, and it will pull information right from the spreadsheet and dump that into these documents, and then they can even be shared directly to people. Right now, I know there's a couple of our buildings that are working off of a system like this for their referral process to speed up that communication, so the teachers, students, parents, everybody's kind of in the loop automatically. So that's Autocrat. The other one we have here is Form Mule, which is a similar process, except it only sends emails. So if it was just simply you need to send a notification out to somebody, you can do that there, and you can write basically a form email, like a standard template email, but have all of the important stuff kind of replaced with specific data from your spreadsheet. So you have all that information in there as well. And that's one of the benefits, again, of having collected email addresses into that. Couple other additional things that we're going to take a look at here. What is a lot of it has to do with the sharing settings. So if I come up here to share, it's going to pop up with, give me my options for sharing. There's a couple of things that we notice in your settings. You can change some of these basic settings. So editors, what they can do and everything like that, what viewers and commenters can do. If you strictly just want it to be view only, you can set it so people can't download, print, copy it, things like that. But you can give access to our whole domain. You can give it to the whole internet, however you want to set this up. So if I click on this, I can say anybody that has this can view, comment, edit. I'm going to keep it a view for right now. Then we have a link right here. I'm going to click on that so the link is copied for me. I'm going to open a new tab and I'm going to paste this thing in. Now you'll notice right here at the end of this, oh, there I went there. At the end of this, it says edit and then the grid, blah, 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 all that information. If I get rid of this and I say template/preview, it takes me to this. And so what this sets me up for is it shows me what the sheet looks like, but it allows me to make basically my own copy. When it says use template, if I click on that, I will now have my very own copy of this. So this is a way to really easy distribute information that you need people to have their own copy of. Let's say it's the mileage form, for mileage reimbursement that comes out. You can give this to people in this format. All they have to do is click use template. Now they have their own personal copy of it. So it's just, it's a little thing that can kind of speed some of that stuff up in terms of distribution of information or, those templates to everybody. So that's just a little feature there. You can do this as well. If you don't want to see the template preview, you can just put the word copy, and that kind of lets you make a copy of it. It is blind. I prefer the template preview because you get to see what you're doing before you make a copy of it. However, this also works as well for people to make a copy. They just click on that. And that, by and large, is really the most you're going to see in terms of what happens in Google Sheets. Now, there are a lot of different formulas we can write to look at data, and we could spend hours upon hours going through all of them. I will give a couple of the basic ones and a couple of the more advanced ones that you may want to take a look at. So some of the basic stuff, sum, average, we already did some of those. Count if, those are all some basic things. You can also do some sum if formulas. So it's going to add things as long as it meets a condition. Average if, same thing, it averages if it meets a condition. Filter functions are really nice because you can filter a whole bunch of data based off some criteria you put in there. Sorting things, so there's a sort function, you can sort data. Splitting and joining, which means you can pull apart information or put together information. If you're just doing numbers, there's a round function that will automatically round numbers for you. There are random number generators. There are query formulas. Query formulas are actually very powerful because you can pull lots of information based off of a lot of kind of very fluid conditions. And they can be very basic and be very complicated as well. And you can actually run Google Translate right in here as well. So, probably a little bit more applicable for um, our foreign language teachers and things like that. However, if there is something where you needed a message to go home, it is an option as well that you could have things be translated in Google Translate. It's not a perfect system, but it's something that can work. And that is just a small sampling of some of those advanced functions and formulas that we can get into. But there's a lot more that are very powerful that you can definitely use. I forget anything. Oh, one more thing that we can do if we come up here to tools, there's two little pieces of this. You can link any number of forms, Google Forms, to a spreadsheet. So you can collect data from a whole bunch of stuff. Even if you wanted to do it year over year and have it in one spreadsheet, you can do that and link them all together. You also have notification settings. So if you needed to know when someone was editing your document, you can set that up. So if I go to edit notifications, I'll say anytime a change is made, I want an email. I can either do it right away or just at the end of the day, I need to know kind of what's going on. I hit save. That will send an email to me, at the end of every day, giving me kind of the background information of what's been changed in my spreadsheet. And that is your basics. That's your basic tutorial of how Google Sheets is going to work. There's tons and tons and tons of resources out there if you need any of them. But that should be the basic rundown of Google Sheets. So thanks for taking a look and taking a little tour with me.